Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about Taskmaster and Black Widow, in particular, what Taskmaster's story in Black Widow, what that potentially could mean for the character going forward, and just generalities about just how people felt about the characters. There's probably a lot of that is going to be discussed in these videos, but because I am going to be bringing all that up, I am going to be talking spoilers about Black Widow in that regard, like obviously Taskmaster's identity and everything like that. So if you have not seen Black Widow, do not watch this video. I don't want to spoil anything for you, so you have been warned. So really quickly, I personally really like the reveal of it being Antonia, like that she's Taskmaster. That didn't even cross my mind as a possibility until we start getting closer to the end of the movie, and I'm like, that feels like that could be the direction you're going with. I know for some people they had issues with that, which I can understand people, like, because obviously for some people it's like, right, they like Taskmaster as a villain, you know, they're more familiar with, like, obviously I'm more familiar with, like, closer adaptations I'm aware of that exist from, like, stuff that I've watched in video games and stuff like that. So some people didn't like the reveal, which once again, everyone's entitled to feel the way they did. I did, because I think it was a nice element of, like, right, for Natasha, this is probably one of the biggest, like, the whole Antonia thing was probably the biggest thing that she regretted, and for it to be a situation where it's like, I mean, because I don't think it ever completely redeemed her, like, even Antonia being alive, because, yeah, like, I almost killed you when you were a little girl just so I could kill your dad, so I could get away from all this, all that your dad did, everything Red Room related, what it did to me. Sure, so yes, there's that, but I think it's also the element of all that you went through, what so many people went through, because I assumed I took out the Red Room when I thought I killed Dreykov, and I didn't, and this has been going on the entire time. What my sister went through, what I went through, what Antonia went through, you know? Because, and that's my thought was at that final line of, like, is he dead? Because it's like, her dad put her through a lot. He made her into a monster, you know? For her, it's probably a thing of, you know, and I'm sure a lot of the people associated with the Red Room probably would have felt like I'd rather be dead and be myself than be controlled. And she was controlled for most of her life. In his own sick, twisted way, he was trying to save his daughter, but he kind of made her into this mindless soldier for him to control, and she was just a means to an end to him. So, like, you know, and to me, I think that makes it an interesting aspect going forward. Yes, she's freed from her dad at the end of the movie, but I think going forward, because the character isn't dead, I think the character could definitely play a role like Ghost. Ghost, she was kind of a villain, but she, you know, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but, you know, it was just self-preservation, so now she's, like, fine. I mean, granted, we don't know what they'll do with Ghost in the future, but she's out there in this continuity. Same thing for Taskmaster, because we also don't know, like, once again, there's a good chunk of time, because I was about to say there's still the 5-year time skip of you know, the blip and everything in Endgame. We don't know, like, how many, like, whether Yelena, because, like, someone had recently pointed out, like, right, like, she had talked about she didn't have any family left, so it might mean, like, all 3 of them, Yelena, Alexei, and Melina, all got blipped. You know, I mean, how many of those Black Widows that were with them at the end got blipped as well? What about Antonia? Because to me, that opens up a whole lane of things. I think Antonia could still play the role of the more traditional Taskmaster. I mean, I'm not well versed in everything he does, but he's a hired gun. He's a mercenary, so, like, she could easily, like, distance herself from the Black Widows and stuff like that. Like, I'm nothing like you. Like, we had similar circumstances, but being around them will be a constant reminder of what her father did to her, like him forging her into a weapon like he did all these other women. So, like, that's probably a thing of, like, no, I want nothing to do with you guys. But I also think about, like, the psychological damage she went through. Like, I mean, almost getting killed as a kid. Plus, like, all that her father put her through. That's going to leave some psychological scars on many different levels. She also never, I mean, I'm also curious, like, does she hold any resentment towards, like, Yelena or, like, Natasha? Because, like, Yelena and, you know, Alexei and Melina are all her family. And it's like, she never had, like, I mean, granted, she was controlled, so who's to say how much of that, like, her going after Natasha was her, and how much of it was her dad controlling her? Who knows? But I'm like, she may never get an opportunity to kind of vent that because Natasha's not around anymore, so that might lead to the mercenary thing and the psychological thing of, like, right, I'm gonna do whatever I need to survive because I'm on my own in this world. Like, yes, I'm free of my dad, but, like, she's probably messed up in the head in many different regards. Like I said, just your entire life, from, like, what Natasha did to you to what your dad did to you, like, it's going to mess you up. So I think there's certain elements that can necessarily pop up, like, because I heard someone talk about this a while back, that there's actually, I don't know if this is always with the character, or is it a very specific comic book run, or maybe it's something that they've kind of incorporated into the character. Is like, obviously he has that photographic memory that allows him to copy people's abilities. Well, in the comics there is a basically that causes issues because he can remember all these moves, but his own memory in other regards starts lapsing because like the memory needed to remember all that stuff, it starts erasing his own memory. So I'm wondering, like, is there elements of that with Antonia that we never really got into in this particular movie? Because obviously, like, there's the whole chip thing, which I assumed was connected to, I mean, maybe it's kind of connected to some, like, I thought it was just kind of like a AI system of like, oh yeah, like HUD for like her helmet and stuff like that. But I mean, we don't know the full extent of like the ramifications of all that. Once again, like, it's been a couple years, so a lot of stuff could have shifted and changed for her in that time. Not just on a personal level of just like how she operates and whether or not there is like the memory thing. There's a lot of elements to it we don't know what they are in the aftermath of where the MCU is now. The conversation was, well, the next time we'll see some of these characters, Yelena in particular would most likely be the Hawkeye series because she's going after Hawkeye because she's working with Valentina. But it's like, well, we still don't fully know what Valentina's doing. Like, some thoughts people have had, and I brought this up during my review or in discussion, was like, oh, like we could be heading down like a Thunderbolts route, you know, obviously her and John Walker, obviously the way everything got set up in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I don't know whether like Taskmaster is going to be a part of that group, kind of serving in that same vein of kind of like a mercenary in that regard, because we also don't know, like, we probably won't get the aftermath of like what that whole group's deal is until maybe Hawkeye. And even then, I feel like the next time, even after Hawkeye, we'll probably touch on any of this would be like a Captain America 4. You know, we don't even know what that would, there's no, obviously we know it's being made, or, you know, it's being considered, but we don't know what the storyline is going to be, how all these more grounded elements in this nature of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are going to connect in that regard. So that's where I feel like, because at first I was like, now that she's free, she could technically be not an antagonist. I mean, once again, it's the MCU, so they can kind of do whatever they want to, so she could definitely play an anti-hero role, Antonia. She could be like her own person of like, right, you know, what happened to her, she's making sure it never happens to anyone else. So maybe that actually inclines her to be more like Yelena, Milena, and Alexei with helping save the other Black Widows. Or maybe it's just, you know, it's like, nah, like I brought up earlier, maybe she wants nothing to do with it because it's too close to home, it's too much trauma and too much pain associated with it. So we'll have to wait and see. But like I said, I know, I'm curious to you, anyone coming across this video, what are your thoughts about, first and foremost, did you like the reveal, did you not? I'd love to know your opinions about it, why you did like it, why you didn't like it. But then also the element of, you know, what are your thoughts about where we could see Taskmaster next, like what her future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe could be. I'd love to get to know your thoughts about everything. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good